Hello and welcome everyone to the main event this week. My name is Meeta Sani and I'm really pleased to be joined by our special guest today, Claire Ward. Welcome back, Claire.
Thank you very much for having me, Meeta.
Pleasure. Well, we've been doing these for a few years now, haven't we, on and off?
I know.
Today's topic is a very timely one and a very important one, actually. Tell me why financial well-being is an important topic for you to share today.
Yeah, of course. I think it's a personally important topic because I've always felt that actually kind of growing up, finance wasn't really a thing that actually we spoke about. It certainly wasn't something you learn at school. And then you're sort of thrust into the workplace, and before you know it, you're kind of looking at houses and, all sorts of things. And actually, it took me until I was into my 40s to really understand quite a lot about finances. I was very aware, though, of how the impact of them can be on myself and others around me, with certain life events. And I think over the past few years, since COVID, but beyond, I think it's 22, 23 when the kind of cost of living crisis really sort of became a thing. I think people are more aware of that. And I think generally our role in a business as a business leader or people leader, when we look at our team's well-being, it's more holistic than just, what have we got here? And actually, how are we thinking more broadly about our team's, our team's performance, our team's well-being? And finance is viewed as one of the second most important factors in how people feel and how well they feel. So it has a real impact.
That is huge, actually. Second most important, and probably the least focused on in a workplace environment. Even for myself, with the 25, 30 years of working with businesses and our own business, financial well-being, apart from some pension support, giving sort of insights into maybe some salary sacrifice, it's all been quite functional. It's not really been the how are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as we were discussing earlier, it's not always talked about. I think, even kind of mental health and well-being is a little bit more prominent. I mean, sure, we're actually talking about finances a bit more. But again, I think particularly when it comes to the workplace, many people feel, well, that's very personal. So, how do we bring that into the workplace? Because it is so personal. It means different things, as we'll talk about, different things to different people. And, and also people, I think, get a bit fearful of, oh, God, it just means, more salary. And that's something that, while individuals feel under pressure, I know certainly businesses do as well.
They're afraid of opening that door.
Absolutely. We're looking, market factors this year. I think the CIPD have done some research. They're looking at moderating pay rises. Most people are looking at moderating pay rises when compared to last year. We've just had a budget which will still impact, most organizations, albeit maybe not as badly as they thought initially. So all of these factors, I think lend themselves to it.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the budget has impacted employers with the NIC hike to think about, well, how do I absorb those costs? How do I deal with those costs? And I think employees probably feel a bit worried, even though it's not a direct tax. I think that employees are probably aware that in some way it will affect them. But listen, let me do a quick bit of housekeeping before we jump in. So welcome everyone. If for those who've been before, I apologize, I'm going to repeat probably what you've heard every time. Claire and I will be here for about 45 minutes to 1:45. We try and keep our sessions succinct, but also informative and interactive, because we really want you to be able to go away with something you can apply into your organization straight away. Having said that, we will send you a recording of this, and it might be that you want to not only enlighten yourself, but maybe, tip the balance for a member of your senior leadership team or someone that you want to see, get them to see something in a different way to help your workplace environment. So share this with people that you think will benefit from seeing the benefits and perspectives of the topic. Also, being interactive, we have done a poll today, which is, and actually, Claire, you got this from, because it was Talk Money Week last week, you were saying.
Talk Money Week, yes. And their theme this year was one simple step.
Yeah. And I like that because it takes this feeling of overwhelm away, that actually we can all just do one thing. So the poll today is saying, what is the one simple step that you would want to do for your team to support their financial well-being? And that actually means your financial well-being as well, because you're part of that team. So first and foremost, is it financial education? Is that where you think your people will benefit? And then financial tools, so access to tools that will help people, be able to manage their finances. I know even to this day, banking apps, their budgeting tools, their cash flow awareness tools, they're not great, even, doing a tax calculation is not as easy as we think. So financial tools, and then maximizing workplace benefits. So, do you think that there's some work to be done within your organization? And of course, upskilling managers, upskilling your senior people that are going to then support the team. Those are the 4 areas that we've asked you about in the polls. I mean, actually, Claire has brought some really interesting topics to talk about. But also, we'd be interested to know if there are things that you're doing that you want to share, and we'd love for you to share, because this is an interactive session, and actually the sum is always greater than the individual part. So the power of having us all here focused on this topic, hopefully, we not only share, but we learn from this too, right, Claire?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every learning day.
Yeah, so I'm just going to type a quick hello into the chat box just to show everyone how easy it is. And if you could give us a hi back, let us know you can hear us, let us know, the tech is fine on your end, but also just let us know if there's anything you've been doing that you think is really useful, and we'll talk about it more in the session. Right, I think that's the housekeeping bit done. So, Claire, we've said we'll cover pillars of financial well-being, the landscape of the employee, and then how we can help employees achieve their goals with tips and tools. But I mean, it's such a big topic, and yet it can be quite simple. Sorry, my phone is ringing away there.
I believe it can, if you break it down into simple enough steps, like most things. I think, some of the research that I've done and, and that I've looked at over the years, because we all know we all know that it can impact us. And when we feel a bit like, it's getting near to Christmas, or it's after Christmas, particularly maybe when we think, I'm out of control of my spending. I mean, that's a really interesting factor, is first of all, actually understanding what is it when we feel financially well versus not well? What does that actually mean? I've got a couple of slides. I'm just thinking, shall I start these now?
Yeah, perfect. And I'll say hello to Daniela, who's taken the time to say hello. There's a lot more of us in the room. So if everyone could just let us know you're there and you can hear us, that would be amazing. I just wanted to let you know that actually financial education is currently running at top most popular tool or support that people think they need. So it's good that they're in the room today.
Yeah, and I can completely see why as well. There are some others we'll look at too, but I think in terms of kind of like this core, what are these core pillars and what are the factors that influence it? In terms of financial well-being. So this is obviously a very long sentence about what it means, but I always like, whenever I'm looking at any form of well-being, it can never be taken in isolation. I believe you're not well, or it's not binary. It's not that you're well or not well. There are different degrees of it. And it's also going to vary from person to person. It's a highly personal thing. It's also, as Jessie J would say, not just about the money. So it's definitely not about, having, X amount. In terms of, more and more money. I mean, certainly that might help you meet some of your financial goals, but actually some of the research has shown that those with lower incomes can be just as effective as those with higher incomes in terms of the impact that it has on them, because there are so many other, factors which influence this. So, I mean, my favorite word out of all of this is around choice. Because I think when we have, when we are comfortable in terms of meeting, whatever financial obligations, we have, and then we have the choices, we don't feel the impact so greatly. So I think that's a really key thing for me in terms of what does it mean in practice? Okay, so, having the choices, having that control, understanding what money is coming in and what's going out, making sure that actually, you're in the black, not in the red. It took me years to work out that, that was the case. And now, with student debt, again, kind of rising, most students I read, leave with an average of £48,000 worth of debt, back in my day. I was very fortunate enough to kind of learn at a time where I didn't have to, pay. There weren't student, finances in the same way as they are. I think that's a massive impact on people, and perhaps why some of the research also shows that in terms of demographics, those who are 25 to 34 seem to be most impacted in terms of their financial wellness. They're also the least likely to be saving in terms of thinking about, about the future. And given that we know that education isn't so hot when we're, at our schooling days, they're probably less educated on finances as well. So I think, there's a lot of things to unpack there, but getting this.
And I was going to say that this is happening to people in their day-to-day life, but actually they come to work, and we come to work to earn a living, but also to feel like we're achieving. There's lots of different reasons why people come to work, but that financial security and financial health of employees, it's such a, it can be toxic when it's not good, because it starts to affect people's engagement. It starts to therefore affect their productivity. And actually it can create quite a negative environment in the workplace, which then affects other people. And I think employers, and again, this is from my experience and working with other business leaders, often we think, okay, I can't address that because they're going to ask for a pay rise. And actually, sometimes it's the ones that have the awareness, have the education, have the forward planning, have the time and headspace to say, right, in 6 months, I'm going to have a squeeze. What can I be doing now to not get to that squeeze? That will then eliminate those peaks and troughs of financial worry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I so wish that, if I'd have gone to work, and I've worked in some fabulous organisations, but I so wish that actually someone could have shared this with me when I was setting up my pension. 3% or whatever, it's 5% now of my salary would automatically go into this pension. I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know what that really meant for my future. Sometimes it's because it's too far off, and fully appreciate that actually you can't control everything within your employee's orbit, but you can certainly help provide some of the framework that's going to, as you say, thrive in your organization. I think, again, just to sort of throw a couple of other stats in there, when you were saying around, the impact on the teams and, and the teams around them, we know, again, that research shows that actually those who are, more likely to have, financial challenges and be less financially well, are more likely to have absences. They're also more likely to have other mental health concerns. And we know that, again, from the research, that 1 in 5 people have said that where they have, financial concerns, it impacts on their performance and their productivity, because they're either absent or mentally absent because they're so worried about things. And, again, we talk about, many of you may have things like, employee assistance programs. And, and again, my experience over the years is, obviously they can't tell you, any personal data, and they can only give you absolute top line stats. But I do remember feeling very surprised kind of earlier in my career when some of the statistics that we were given from our workforce were around debt. And I was thinking, wow, I was working at the time in what one would describe as a very professional environment with average salaries of considerably above the national average. And yet still these were concerning things for people. So, I think all of them quite challenging.
And actually, I think that often employees who are under financial strain and stress can link that incorrectly with their work environment and think, oh, I'm not getting my pay rise, that's why I'm in financial difficulty. Whereas if they were able to have more education, understanding, tools and support, they might actually be able to manage their finances better, where they don't feel this umbrage to their boss and their working environment and the company. I think there's no downsides to embarking on this with your people. And we always say that the best time was back, when somebody did, but the next best time is now. And whatever path you're on and however far along you are, I love that one simple step. Let's find what that one simple step is going to be today.
Absolutely. So And what I'm going to do is just take you through kind of a brief framework in terms of, how you can break it down, and then some specific tools. And by all means, it's a very simple framework that you might be familiar with. But, in terms of understanding the factors that affect our team as well and their level of financial wellness, there's lots of things. This goes for ourselves as well, their own money stories. So this is what they've grown up with. You might have heard of this phrase, but this is, how they've grown up in terms of their perceptions of, money, and things like money doesn't grow on trees. You might grow up with a kind of scarcity mindset. So, how we've grown up will affect us, our own confidence levels, just generally in terms of, our education, our awareness, our level of financial literacy. We've touched on this already in terms of actually how, what education we have received, have we read anything, in terms of actually what even financial terms are, because I think there's something around the terms that people use. I don't know if you've ever read any of your pensions bump that arrives, on an annual basis. I mean, more arrives now in your inbox than it does, on your doormat. But, the terms used, I mean, they had a big effort a few years ago to try and create more plain English versions because they were just unintelligible. So I think, getting comfortable with some of these terms, and I can point to a fabulous website and blog post that a blogger that I subscribe to is a woman called Holly Mackey, who created. She's an ex-financial journalist, and she writes that it's boring money is her site. But she kind of
I'm going to put it in the chat box for people.
Yeah, it's boring money, and it couldn't be less boring. She writes in a brilliant way that basically kind of reduces the complexities of financial terms. But that's a big thing, because when you're faced with all of that information, we all tend to go blank. And then level of manageable debt. That's obviously going to be. I think debt is a factor of most people's lives at some stage. Or other, whether they have graduated, just entering the workforce, whether they have mortgages, whether they, for whatever reason, we are a country, which does have a lot of debt, most of it manageable. But it's where it becomes unmanageable. And again, it's this factor around control that will start to really colour people. Because I think from the experience that I've had and that I've seen, getting out of those initial kind of crisis where people really feel it's unmanageable, it's more emergency help for people there. And I think if someone's in that frame of mind where they feel everything is unmanageable, it's immediate care that they need, and support and signposting, because I don't think people function very well in that state at all.
It's almost like being at the front line of a war zone. People, it becomes flight or fight kind of, and it's complete disengagement, isn't it? I think also people are afraid that if they do pick up the phone to a debt line or a helpline, that it will be taken out of their hands and that the control will be taken away. But that's certainly not the case. No. And I think just the basics that an employer can make those numbers available, whether it's an employee assistance program, whether it's on the intranet, or even if it's just a little, following on from this, we did a session on employee and financial well-being. Here are some useful numbers that might be of interest. And if you want to talk, let's talk about it in our next catch up. Or maybe every manager can say, okay, I'm going to bring up the how are you, and is there anything in the financial space that we can talk about and support you with? Simple as that, right?
Absolutely, because and also I think the government has done a really good job in making more information available to people. I think their money and pension services. There's lots of guides. There's helplines. There's lots of places that you can go for these things. The key is to get people to open up, of course, and we know that they don't do that all of the time. So I think having understanding the different factors. Also, gender is a factor. We touched on it before. Actually, we opened our doors up, didn't we? Because it was very interesting. We have, we have on the one hand, we have gender can be a factor. So research shows that women become more stressed about their finances than men do. But yet at the same time, we're also, as Mita pointed out, we are, in November, we are, and month focused on men's mental health. And I would actually probably love to read up and find out a little bit more on research around men and their financial well-being and how they see it, because my experience is that, in general, people don't open up about their finances, but particularly males that I have come across. So I do wonder if there is some more research on that, but that can also, be a factor. As well as other things like lifestyles and, general stage of life is obviously going to be different. And that's why, when thinking about helping out your team, little polls and surveys work quite well in terms of understanding the issues, anonymous surveys, understanding the issues your teams face. Can be good, because there's me saying, well, actually, those aged 25 to 34 it's most impacting. It might not in your organization. It might be somewhat different.
For doing some nice anonymous polls, even if you do it on the phone, 3 or 4 questions, and getting the temperature of the room in the financial well-being space. And this then comes into looking at your employees' landscape and what your team is looking to you for, and how you can help them. You can't help them until you know what the challenge is. And I always think to myself that so much, coming to talks like this and reading up, and I put the Boring Money podcast into the as well for anyone that wants to get more insights. But actually, most of your answers and insights will come from the floor, from the people, if you engage and find out what's going on for them. That will really guide you and direct you to what you need to do. And you don't have to do everything for everyone. You will see within your team that actually 1 or 2 approaches, it might be access to the pensions advisor team and giving them a one-to-one session with a financial planner or something. And a lot of these are they're free. The companies and advisors will do these for nothing.
Most companies that I've worked with, financial services companies, the pensions companies, they will certainly, do at least 1 session a year, free of charge. They might try and charge for others, but I think actually, particularly depending on the size of your organization, if you've got any number of people, you can easily negotiate, for them to do this. So absolutely, it becomes very cost neutral, for you as an employer. And I think the other way. So what I was going to also share with you is how I've broken it down in terms of, okay, well, actually, if I'm going to sit with my employees, how can I think about it? How can I get them to think about it? So I've sort of followed the GROW framework, which many of you might be familiar with in terms of the coaching methodology. I'm not an out and out coach, but I understand the methodology and I love a framework. So, but when thinking about how to improve anyone's, well-being, I guess your starting point is, what do they want to do? What do they want to achieve? What's their goal? Is it, short term, long term? You don't have to decide. It's not your goal. In the same way that you're asking, your teams kind of what support they want, but what necessarily are they actually looking at in terms of, is it the holiday next summer that's kind of playing on their mind? Or is it actually, their long term, oh God, what happens when I retire? Or when I change jobs, or my mortgage? But we know from all the other goal setting that we do that A, it can be a challenge, and B, that the clearer you are, the more likely you are to be able to succeed. So I think just even encouraging people, to do this and
to pull it apart,
Absolutely. I mean, I ran a session the other day, and we were talking about financial goals, and I think there were about 25 people, in this session with one of my clients, and I think probably about 2 or 3 people had even thought about financial goals, and because there are other goals we've got, whether it's kind of like our health, our physical health or what have you. We're very au fait with that, less with our financial. So starting to.
It's changing the mindset in your organization and saying, money isn't a dirty word. How we don't talk religion and we don't talk money. Actually, money isn't a status, it's a tool. And the sooner we can dispel this kind of hierarchy of the more I have, the better I am. And as you said, whether you earn, high level or entry level income, the debt worries are actually very similar across the range. But one of the things that you were saying about goal setting, and a lot of businesses, and we do it with our guys as well, is once a year we set our 6-month, 12-month and 5-year goals, and we insist that we've done the business goals. Now let's look at some personal goals. What do you want to achieve on this path of career on one side, but you've got your self-growth as well, and what experience do you want to have? And more often than not, there is a financial impact goal, whether it's a holiday, whether it's buying something, a house, a car, and I think that's a nice way of bringing the money conversation into your meeting with your employee, that doesn't feel intrusive or to make them feel uncomfortable. Even to the point that you could bring it in that we say, why don't we have one financial goal, one well-being goal, and one career goal? Let's have a look at all of them. Yeah. And as you said at the beginning, Claire, holistic management, holistic support. I believe in looking at our people in 3D, 4D, 5D. Everyone has so many layers. So, yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say about this GROW method of coaching, which I think is so powerful, and again, you said it, you don't need the answers as a manager or even as a peer-to-peer coaching session. All you need to do is hold space for them. And so I love the way, I'm looking forward to hearing more, because someone can actually take these slides away and literally use them word for word.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the next one, reality. So, reality check. It's, it is also interesting about this one small step, being about the theme this year, because again, from my research, most people will never get to even look at a budget because it scares them too much. And, which is a really sad thing, because actually, if we get comfortable with what's going in, what's going out, ultimately, if we're looking at choices, we need to get control over actually where our reality is. And sometimes I know people, that won't look at their bank statements, that put them in the bin straight away, or maybe they don't even get bank statements anymore, but they certainly won't ever check their balance. Or anything like that. I'm possibly to the other way at the moment, but I like to know exactly where I am. But I also understand, why one might not want to do that. And I think, understanding there's some very simple spreadsheets. I think I've put a link, Martin Lewis is brilliant with this stuff. Again, you're not sitting there with your team member going through, their budget. That's not, they wouldn't want you to, and you wouldn't want to. That's too.
This isn't granular.
Absolutely. But it's the understanding of, okay, well, what's going on here? Because with most choices, the most important thing is actually, spend less than you earn. So, but you might earn in lots of different areas, and depending on your goals, you might need to kind of do a bit of side hustling, or might need to tweak a few things. But understanding where you are is where people often never get to. So helping them out, with these kind of sheets, I think is really useful. Yeah. And then also,
before we go on to the O in GROW, I want to just go back to the comment about the side hustle. Now, historically, businesses and employers have always frowned upon somebody moonlighting or having a second job. But actually, that's somebody, because they think that will take away their focus from the job that they're doing with you. Yeah. But in this environment, a second job, a side hustle, working something at the weekend along with their day job. It's the standard, it's the norm. A lot of people, because of the financial situation we've been in since COVID and even Brexit for some people, and actually, are they not the hardworking, go-getting people that you want in your world, the ones that aren't afraid to put themselves out there and experiment and try? Actually, I think somebody who says, you know what, I'm going to take a second job, or I've started a side hustle, that's a really formidable mindset and the type of attitude you want in your organization. Think about how you can help them focus that in your workplace rather than see it as they're moonlighting, can't have that, So yeah, it's a mindset, I think, for managers to rather than see it as a negative, see it as these are some great skills and attitudes that these people are known for. And
I think that there is a real difference, isn't there, between doing a job which directly conflicts or competes with your actual, your main job versus doing something else at the weekends, or whether it's in hospitality or, kind of selling online or what have you. As long as you're not doing it at work, and as you say, it's not impacting, great, absolutely.
And the other thing I would say again, and I know that we're not giving solutions for everything, but a lot of employers within the reality check space, there are so many tools that employers give. For example, we provide our team with health insurance,
Yes.
and within that, everyone has access to. I think Waitrose give you up to 40% off on anything healthy for for the next month if you hit a certain number of movement points, and that's huge. And talk about it. Actually, don't just sort of say, "Oh, here's your." Employee assistance program, here's your health insurance, here's the cover for this. Actually, if you dig underneath, you can provide your team with so many financial savings approaches that you could fix a lot of their issues.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned it, actually, the EAP schemes that a lot of people have, we've renewed a couple recently, but for our clients. And, when we've gone and said, okay, well, what's the usage? And they've said nil.
Yes.
I've known that it's not been nil all the time, and that maybe it's been nil this year. And actually what we've said is, do you know what? We would still encourage you to have it because it's relatively low cost. And actually, let's just get better at promoting this because more people, so more people can understand, as you say.
That's the missing link.
Yeah, it's a sort of PR internally, isn't it, around it?
But it's also problem solving because, the things you've mentioned there are like the fundamentals of anybody, the utilities, the bills, the mortgage. How am I going to pay these when I also want to go out? I want to do some exercise. I want to eat good food.
Yeah.
All of these, when you think about how much these organizations must have spent on creating these, point systems and reward systems, and no one's using them because they're not easily available. But I think, we're doing it in our business at the moment. I said to my head of ops, can you do a review of all of our offerings and let's let everyone know it's coming up to Christmas. We're all thinking about how to spend money on gifts and save money elsewhere as a result. And let's use all companies already paying for it.
Yeah.
So we've got a quick question from the room from Inga asking, which companies are you using for EAP?
So we've used Health Assured, has been the main one. And then we've started to research another company because we had some concerns about Health Assured just with the BBC recent stuff. But actually, they've been relatively good for us. So there are others out there, but we've used Health Assured primarily. And they've been very supportive and we've had very good feedback. So I've had a different experience perhaps to some others.
The other ones I would mention is, as I said, look at your health insurance provider. Your pension insurance provider will have financial support systems like the rewards and like the cost savings on groceries. We use something called Health Shield in our company, which again, it's really low cost, but the benefits it gives around money for self-care. So it could be massage, osteo, optics. I think there's something to do with cost of living, groceries and things like that. So again, that's just in our team. We've got 2 or 3 different ones. So your HR system. So again, something we use, and this is not me promoting, but something we use called Charlie HR. Yeah. And within Charlie HR, there's so many cost savings, and get your people to look at their bank accounts and their mortgages, and there'll be so much under the surface that can provide them with savings. Everyone lacks headspace, but you could even say, you know what, I'm going to give you an extra hour over lunch, just or finish at 4 on Friday, and do your research. Take that time. That time you give them will give them hours of headspace and stress release. So think about what they need.
You're absolutely right. It's what's being served right in front of me right now. And that headspace. That's a brilliant way of looking at it. Certainly. Because I think, so why, when I come to look at the options, helping your team. So one of the things, that we look at and general kind of financial well-being is your ability to absorb financial shocks. Well, it's a bit morbid, this slide, but, do you have life assurance? Can you provide it? Can you provide medical cover? Can you provide, resources around debt, redundancy? We don't, no company offers redundancy insurance, but it's that kind of thing, getting someone to think about what are the kind of shocks that people, that do impact people, and how do you prepare for it? And just even getting someone to think about this. One of the the next slide sort of goes on to talk about it, but advising building up an emergency funds. This is one of the main things that you can do, and you can sort of advise your team to help support, is to deal with any financial shock. So one is that some of these are around products, aren't they? Is that these are financial products in the market. I'm certainly not advising over which ones, but there are different ones available. And this will depend, again, going back to factors that influence how your financial well-being. Some people may never care about financial insurance products. No, it doesn't even get a look in. Whether others I know, have a full complement of every insurance product going. Now, you or I might sit somewhere on that, on that spectrum, but it will be different. So, but these are things that you can look, and again, you can ask your team in terms of what would be of interest to them. So my guess is that as your team, depending on their life stage, might start to get more interested in things like pensions, like income protection, when they start looking at families, purchasing property, things like that, which are typically obviously beyond, kind of your entry level employees. Most people are pretty keen on medical insurance because that can impact us at any stage, and that's a really key thing. And if we can be proactive in that, that helps everybody, because obviously if you've got people who are absent due to ill health, we know the NHS has severe pressures, and obviously that this doesn't come without a cost for an organisation, but for many the return on investment is still there in terms of actually people getting the help they need very quick and back to work.
I tell you what, I would add to that, Claire, is a lot of employees say no to medical insurance because of the benefit in kind costs. So it costs them 20%, 40%. Actually, you could discuss with your employee about giving them a lower level of cover, which will cost them less, cost you less as an employer, but will still provide. And it's little things like which hospitals they go to, or if there's an excess. So some companies will go for lower fees, but actually pay the excess when somebody uses it. So for all of those that don't use it, we're all good. And for those that do need it, the employer still saves money. But I think, again, it's having that conversation around what works for the individual. And as hard as it is for an overarching policy to suit everyone, at manager level, with around 5, give or take, people, hopefully, you can adapt what you're offering to suit their budget and life stage requirements. And I think people want to be listened to. I think people want to know there's options. Like this is the bit that takes the longest actually in a coaching session, is let's look at more options and more options. Let's get really crazy with our options, because actually when you look at all options, you come back to what sits right with you. But you've really got to explore deeply in this option space about what other ways that they might be able to overcome financial concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I think sort of in summary, and we've covered some of this, but, as you say, listen to understand. So through the surveys that we're doing, through talking to your team members, through thinking yourself about, okay, actually what's impacting me? Because you might be able to get a very good steer on what people feel in terms of just how yourself is feeling, encouraging these conversations. This is, say, I love the idea of just taking 1 hour, and maybe taking one step is just saying to people, listen, this has prompted me to think about what we can do, to take 1 hour in a couple of weeks over a lunchtime. Let's brainstorm some things. Let's talk about actually how we can help our financial well-being. That would be fantastic,
And wouldn't it be lovely if a week or two later you could come back and everyone could talk about what they've tried and how it's impacted them and what the benefit of that has been financially? And you know what? It's never, as you said, it's not binary. In all of these tools and conversations, we're not going to flick a switch and fix it all. But we start getting on the right approach to financial health, to reducing the stress, reducing the stigma, and again, reducing the weight that people are carrying that can be supported and can be resolved. And I think that's the bit, it's one is about options, but the other is feeling very alone with your problems. I think that is so debilitating for people. So just bringing it into, especially right now, you know, I feel like I've been saying especially right now for about 5 years, and I'd hate to think that this is the new norm. You know, we're not in austerity yet, but people feel that they have a lot less, and they do, you know, practically speaking, people do have a lot less in their pockets. We haven't bounced back from all of the cost of living, and it's still there in some ways.
Yeah.
So I love, you know, this, as you said, the listening, but also then having the conversations and coming back round to it.
Yeah.
You know, could be monthly, anything.
Completely. And all of, you know, and there are so many workplace benefits now in terms of salary sacrifice that you can look at. You know, I know, you know, workplace nurseries have been a huge benefit to some. I know there are some challenges around, you know, cash flow around, and I know that some teams have felt like they haven't wanted to take that step, but we know lots of organisations that have gone down the workplace nursery route in terms of salary sacrifice, and I mean that is immense. If you're in London and I mean, nurseries are expensive everywhere, but in terms of, you know, someone I was actively engaged in terms of setting up a workplace nursery scheme, and then, you know, and then helping them out, it saved this person thousands of pounds. You know, they had 2 children at nursery. It was immense, the savings they made, and it didn't impact in terms of what the company spent. So, you know, those are brilliant things if you can look to them as well.
And salary sacrifice schemes actually cost the employer less because there's no employer's NIC on that. So you'll be doing good for them and you'll be doing good for you. Not that that's why you're doing it, but hey, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of companies out there now who you can do salary sacrifice on groceries and bikes and cars and all sorts, you know, and there is a monthly cost.
Yeah.
But again, you'll be saving that on NIC anyway. So I definitely think it's a really good idea what you said there. Yeah, salary sacrifice schemes are very clever and very impactful.
Yeah, they are. And then just finally, I just had some more info. So in terms of some books, you know, that I've read that I thought, you know, are actually really interesting and really useful for people. Podcasts I talked about, Boring Money, but, you know, Money to the Matches, the Financial Wellbeing podcast is a great podcast. It's one of their kind of early adopters of financial wellbeing as a kind of, you know, as a practice. And they came out of, you know, a very traditional financial planning and financial management organization, where they basically felt that actually all they were doing in their previous life was just looking at people's spreadsheets and not really getting actively engaged in what was it that they actually wanted. It wasn't about the number on the spreadsheet going up. It was about being able to take that cruise, by their, you know, grandchildren or children or friends, you know, take them out, you know, help contribute towards a car or some education. It was about
the human side
of it, exactly, the more holistic side. And actually, so the do you know what, I've forgotten his name who actually runs it, but the organization that is behind the Financial Wellbeing podcast, it, you know, has been long running in this and just has got those reams of episodes. It's really interesting to take a look. And then just generally, as we say, the EAP, you know, kind of health kits that you get and the toolkits that you get within those can be very useful as well.
Gosh, Claire, what a great, intense education session that was. But we are going to send this slide out to everyone as well, right? The slides with the recording. So it's there for you. It's there for you to practice, to try. Claire and I are both available outside of these sessions. So if you feel that there's somebody in your team, or if you feel that this is a session you want to run for your people, give us a shout and we'll work something out. Being webinar attendees, we always do them at cost-effective prices as well. Not that this is a sales pitch, we don't do that, but you do have access to this in another format as well if that's something that you think would be impactful and helpful to your people. Claire, thank you so much. I'm going to go to the poll very quickly and have a look at what the results were. So the one simple step that our audience and our delegates today would want to do for their team, number one was financial education. So hopefully we've already given some direction on that. Second was the tools. So again, I think, Claire, we've definitely covered some options. And I think there's a lot of apps and there's a lot of tools out there, but if you get into the podcast and the websites, they'll direct you to the tools that are working best. We've talked about maximising the workplace benefits. That came joint third with upskilling managers to support their teams. So hopefully we've given you a little bit in all the areas to take away and apply. And we hope that this has been really useful for you to be able to impact your worlds and your team's worlds for more engaged and happy people and a productive environment as a result. Claire, as always, thank you so much. It's been insightful, and I know everyone here will be able to really engage in the slides. So we appreciate that. And thanks to everyone for coming along and giving your time and showing how important this is as a topic to you, for yourselves and for your people. So we're bang on time, which is wonderful. So I'm going to say a bye for now, and we'll see you all again soon.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye. Bye.